Arifureta from Commonplace to World's Strongest is an isekai action fantasy light novel written by Ryo Shirakome. This is my spoiler-free review of Volume 2 of the series, as translated by J-Novel Club. Just a reminder that this is a spoiler-free review of Volume 2, not Volume 1, so we'll be talking and referencing things from the previous volume. This is a continuation of the duo that is Hajime and Yu, although this very quickly becomes a trio with Shia, the bunny girl who's on the cover. And yes, what she looks like on the cover is pretty much what she's wearing for the whole book. This whole book is pretty much about Shia. Yu and Hajime are still main characters along with Shia now, but they're just along for the ride. You get to see a bit more of Hajime's human side, which obviously he lost a lot of in the first volume, but that's pretty much all of Hajime and Yu are going to get. But holy moly is Shia annoying. I've had this constant gripe which you've heard me talk about before with annoying characters, and Shia is just a straight up example of this being completely as annoying as hell for the whole book. She doesn't change in the slightest throughout this whole book, with quotes like, "How could you not like a beautiful bunny girl like me?" She says in her own words. There is a whole bunch of things, it turns out. Right at the start I knew I wasn't going to enjoy this character at all. Both Hajime and Yu are not interested in her at all and just wanted to straight up abandon her. But here we now have her as a main character. Hajime is just straight broken status right now though. Continuing from the first volume, he completely decimates anything he comes across in this book, and he doesn't grow really though any more than that. Likewise with Yu, she doesn't grow at all. And for this volume she actually pretty much takes a back seat, with Shia taking over so much of the dialogue. The obvious problems we have with the main character who is completely broken is that making the fight actually interesting is really hard. This means that for the whole second half of the book, Hajime does actually get majorly toned down than what you expect. But really this has to be done, because otherwise these fights are just not going to be interesting in the slightest. Considering how we spent the whole of the first volume getting Hajime up to this godlike status, seeing him struggle in this volume actually felt really crappy. At the end of the previous volume, we get a whole bunch of information regarding the Liberators from the memory playback of Orcus. That gets expanded on a fair bit during this volume, and is very much welcome as the complexity and history behind them actually gets pretty deep. So now we'll get a mandatory section regarding the group I'll just sum up as schoolmates. I'll actually pretty much be saying exactly what happens during this whole section, as it's once again tiny and pretty much serves zero purpose for the story. Yes, they are still training and still pushing down in that first dungeon. Yes, Kaori is still training and believes that Hajime is still alive and trying to find him. There's some interesting development around the teacher, and the role that she takes in the kingdom seems to actually be really important, but we literally get only a few lines regarding that, and then we're straight back to Shia and co. On the topic of progress, the main characters do make good progress in this book, and you get introduced to a whole bunch of the world. The most interesting being that you get a good taste of what normal adventurers in this land have at their disposal. You have the schoolmates and Hajime who obviously got summoned here, and since right at the start of Volume 1 we haven't had any normal interaction since then. It's actually fairly pleasant to get out there and start getting proper interaction with townfolks and the like. But along with Shia we get a whole bunch more perverted stuff going on during this book, and it's not anything like the stuff at the end of Volume 1. Here it's just perverted talk almost constantly throughout most of the book rather than any intimate moments. I found pretty much most of these moments incredibly cringeworthy. Alongside this, many of the fights nearly all get turned into comical skits, which is fairly different feel from what we felt at the end of the first volume. It's almost like the author couldn't make up his mind, so you get these sections which are all completely dead serious, and then others that it's just trying to be a giant laugh. One of the main problems I ended up having with the book also is that there's basically memes everywhere. I'm going to assume this is more of the editing rather than the original text, as there's several quotes that I really find hard to imagine being the original text. Even MasterCard couldn't buy what he needed here. Or, people die when they were killed. Those were full sentences in the book. I apologise if this truly were the original Japanese text, but I find it so hard to believe this based on the first volume. Overall, this volume annoyed the absolute hell out of me. Completely all due to the fact that we now have Shia as a main character. Wonderful. We also once again get zero progress on the schoolmates. This time around, Yu and Hajime do make good amounts of progress, but in terms of skill progression and self-development, this is completely the opposite of the first volume. Any of the cool RPG skill-based stuff that went on before now is just all completely gone. Any situation that previously would have been discussed and explained by skill use now just gets brushed off by, well, Hajime is just that much of a beast. I'm reluctant to continue reading further volumes with this change in overall attitude, but mainly due to the addition of Shia. If she doesn't tag out with you and take a back seat, then I really don't think I'll last for another book. If you're going to read this volume, then I really do hope you have a thick skin for Shia. Thanks for listening to this review. Until next time.